Welcome to the Lifeline, a production of Simply BJE. The goal of this podcast is to build, inspire, and to empower our listeners through conversations on business, leadership, and mental health. We invite you to follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and at www.simplybje.com/The Lifeline. Now, let's tune in for today's episode. Welcome back to another episode of The Lifeline, where real brothers having real conversations about real life. I'm Barry J. Elliott, joined by Lynnsburg Petway II and Bo Powell. In honor of Mental Health Awareness Month, we're diving into an important and timely conversation about mental well-being. Today, we're joined by Dr. Tiara Parsons, who serves as Director of Counseling Services at Johnson C. Smith University, a doctoral candidate in the Curriculum and Instruction in Urban Studies program. Together, we'll explore the realities that many people are facing, how we can break stigma around mental health, and practical ways to care for ourselves and each other. So let's get into it. Good morning, fellas. Good morning, Dr. Parsons.
Morning. Good morning. Good morning. Good morning. So, since this is Mental Health Awareness Month, why does this conversation matter right now, especially with people going through so much with the war? We got tariffs, we got job loss, got a lot of things going on. So why is it so important?
Yeah, that's a great kickoff question. And I was going to say some of the same things, but it's so important because people are so worn down right now, emotionally, spiritually, financially, okay, professionally and mentally, and often at the same time. So this month gives us space to acknowledge that faith doesn't make us immune to the struggle, right? It gives us an opportunity to tend to those parts of our life as like stewardship of the life that God has given us. So it creates that more intentional space for us to focus in on the things that we need to address in our lives. So
Yeah.
those are my initial thoughts. And
So-
whenever you become so worn, it's like you may not be motivated to get
Yeah.
up and do the things that you desire to do. So finding community in this month is so special to me, and I look forward to it every year.
So what have you seen over the last couple of years of how mental health has changed, especially coming out of COVID? Yeah, a lot of people sitting at home. So we're really 5 years out of that, and we should
Mhm.
be back to normal. But now we have other weight on our shoulders.
Yeah, a lot of weight. What I've seen is that people are more open. They're more open to expressing that they need help or that they are aware, and that's a blessing. They're not being silent about certain things, but also openness without guidance kind of puts us in a unique situation because anxiety has ramped up in these past, maybe 5 or so years, even pre-COVID. So a lot of anxiety, a lot of fear about what's next, a lot of trauma, a lot of just environmental distractions that have folks kind of down in the dumps, as I say. But the great thing is that we're able to hear those concerns, identify those solutions or interventions to kind of help folks move forward. And the church has been a great space for folks to kind of release those concerns, kind of build that community, because faith gives us language for both the reality and also the hope. So those are some things that I'm seeing in regards to the mental health piece, and also leaning a little bit into that faith part with mental health.
You said something. I want you to go back to that. I think you said openness without guidance. Is that what you said?
Yes.
Can you expound on that?
Yeah, so you can be open to receiving help. You can name it. You can say, I'm struggling. This is hard for me. I'm hurting. And so if you're isolated or if you're by yourself or if you don't have anyone to bounce ideas off of, I say it that way because therapy kind of sounds so constricting. So if you don't have anyone to kind of help you see things from different perspectives, then you just stay in that state of isolation. You stay immobile, so having that guidance to help you navigate your path is important. I always say that one of our core principles in social work is self-determination, and that's empowering the person to make the best informed decision for their life. So I am not here to tell you what to do. I'm here to make an assessment, to give you some options, and to empower you to take that step in your life, so that you can see that, hey, I can do this or it's possible, and you can see what's on the other side of that obstacle because there is life on the other side of the obstacle, right? So that's what I mean by that.
So you mentioned church. and faith. What about the big pink green elephant in the room, social media? I say that because one of my coworkers was 24 and last week he was killed in a car accident. And another coworker posted something last night about losing people, always being strong. I normally carry it. This post isn't for pity, but it seemed like he was reaching. So I DM'd him, gave him some advice, told him, it's okay to use every emotion God has given you. And that I said it's okay to cry. Because he was telling about how you keep it locked in. So how has social media kind of changed the way people view mental
Mm.
health? Because more people will put their business out there on social media, but won't make an appointment to come see you or see a therapist.
Whoa. So that's a big one, right? That's a big one. So social media can be good and then it can be not so good. So we know about the good things and all the marketing that providers do and all of the great social spaces. So we're not talking about that. But when we talk about the concerns, a huge one is just the trends of it all, the buzzwords and just, making it so like simple, like it's just the thing to do when people are really suffering and they're just overlooking it because we're so numb to all the things that we have been seeing. AI is a big thing that we're seeing on social media where chat or copilot is literally someone's therapist, and so that can be very dangerous, especially when folks are in crisis situations or going through grief or trauma. So we have to be very careful about that because folks on social media, all you see is what they put out. You don't know who's behind the screen most times or what's going on. Whenever you're in company with a therapist, that person is trained to assess, to be attuned to what you have going on, to make those decisions that are life changing, whether it's imminent risk or if you're in some form of situation of threat. So it's important to be very careful about what you take in, what you consume for social media, because that will also penetrate your spirit. Once it gets that deep, then we're talking about a deliverance session or something that needs to happen in church. Just being very careful.
Yeah, it's interesting that we kind of took this turn to talk about social media, Dr. Parsons, because I remember as we wwere coming through COVID, I was in therapy at that time, and I remember my therapist talking about we don't know how the pandemic is going to affect people,
Mhm.
because people went from being very mobile to all of a sudden being at the house. And I feel like that was kind of an uptick of people being locked in on social media because there was really nothing else to do. So
Mhm.
talk to us about, I mean, how do you feel like, social media and just constantly being connected? Because it's like people can't do anything without having their phone and doing the scroll. How is that constant connectivity to social media really impacting people, in your opinion?
It's a good question.
It's great. It goes back to the anxiety piece. And when you think about, let's just break it down between, let's just say, like age groups, thinking about our teens, our youth, being constantly connected, let's just say dating relationships. You have the social control, you have the dating violence, you have the substance abuse influence, things of that nature, which can be very, very, very
Mhm.
like critical because they're going to sleep on the FaceTime, on the phone, on the
Mhm.
social media. The battery's almost dying and you wake up and you can't do anything without your phone, or always having to respond just when anybody sends you a message. I know
Mhm.
you have your phone in your hand and I know you need to respond, but you may not have the capacity to respond.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That's that instant gratification that we have to be careful. I see your message. I've assessed that I will get to it in time, but we should not have to feel obligated to instantly respond if you do not have the capacity. That creates those healthy boundaries and also centers your wellness as well. You may send it something automated and say, because I have messages that I copy and paste. Like if I just don't have the capacity, I'll copy and paste it and just, that's my kind of away message. And then I'll get back to it. We think about our older adults, we think about comparison, we think about imposter syndrome because You may think that you're supposed to be where this person is supposed to be, or I'm supposed to have
Mhm.
this and have that. No, you're right where you need to be in your life. You're right where God wants you to be in your life. So that comparison, I think, as Jonathan McReynolds has a song called Comparison Kills.
Mhm.
And so just be very careful about coveting or wanting somebody else's life and being content with where God has you and where He's taking you.
Yeah, that's really good because now it begins to make me think about just how we navigate stress and what that really looks like from day to day. Because, what you're saying is now that we're in this constant state of connectivity, our anxiety and nervous system is always on high alert. And so, how do you tell the difference between somebody who's dealing with everyday stress or something a little bit deeper?
Yeah. So
Mm,
that's a good question. And you
mm,
almost think like, oh, well, folks should already know that, but
mhm,
that's not the case on all fronts. So when I think about everyday stress, I think about something that might be temporary. You might have something come up at work, you might be in traffic, you might have a project that you're working on, you might be assigned a task from, I don't know, an organization, a service organization. But when you start considering something more serious, then that is something that just lingers. It sits on you. You feel it in your body, in your spirit. You have
mhm,
no motivation to do the things that you wanted to do. You start
Mm,
isolating yourself. You have headaches. People start not recognizing you. In retrospect, I can look back
mhm,
and see when I was burned out, and I apologize to anybody that saw me in that state because it's almost like you're unrecognizable. And
mhm,
so taking a moment to pause and say, you know what, I just feel off. If you
mhm,
ever said to yourself, I have just been feeling off, that may be an indicator that you might need to slow down and take inventory of what needs to change because something needs to change, right?
mhm,
And you have the power to change that. Everyone who's listening, you have the power to change whatever it is that needs to be changed to restore your
mhm.
your spirit and your body.
yeah.
Yeah, that's powerful. And I want to ask you because you brought up the instance of AI as people
Yeah.
really look into AI for
Mhm.
therapy. And I want to kind of correlate that to, how culture, different cultures, how we approach mental health. It seems like, more African Americans are becoming, open to therapy, but at the same time, it feels like we still have a lot of ways to go. You know, do you feel like AI has kind of been for lack of a better word, to help people to kind of bridge and to at least start to think about getting some type of therapy? Or let me just kind of break it broader. How do you think that has impacted the way our culture begins to look at therapy? I don't know if I'm asking that correctly, but how is that AI beginning to kind of shape how we look at therapy and at least trying to get some type of help?
Yeah. So of course it may vary, but AI doesn't have to be a bad thing, right? It
Right,
can give us a bridge to therapy, right? It can give
right,
us some motivational points. It can kind of help us frame things. It's just the misuse of AI by people is the issue, right?
mm,
And so anything that we have that's good, it can be turned into something that's not so good. So
mm,
using it as a way to kind of frame your pathway or even maybe research some resources in the
right,
community, but it takes the person reaching out to that actual human to
mm,
get that more
mm.
specialized support.
Yeah. I think it's very important too because I don't think a lot of people realize that even AI will tell you that AI can make mistakes.
Yes, it
And
does.
so, I wanted to really kind of double down on that for our listeners to begin to understand that because it can seem like that it's really speaking to you or whatever, but it can be totally misdiagnosed. I mean, there's several different articles about how it led someone to commit suicide.
Right.
I
Mhm.
believe there was a young child, and there was a parents who were trying to sue. So I really wanted to kind of talk about that. Like you said, it could be a bridge and it can be a resource, but it should never be a substitute for actual therapy because they are prone to make mistakes.
Yeah,
Yeah,
you folks are programming. I'm not an AI specialist, but you
yeah,
have programmers and things that kind of control that network. And so for
hmm,
parents, especially just being very mindful of the activity of what goes on in your child's phone. And
hmm,
also for adults, you can go in and make it respond the way you want it to respond. And so there's so many different things. And like I said before, use it as just kind of a companion, just to
Mhm.
kind of brainstorm and maybe a journal or do some
Mm.
affirmations. But as far as that deeper work that needs to be done in community with someone, that's the safer route because that AI program cannot be attuned. I said that
Mhm.
word before and make that assessment. If you need to go to another provider or seek additional supports, it cannot do that for you.
That's
That's
good.
great.
I
Because Bo,
agree.
I'm glad you asked that because I was going to go back because we kind of went over it. I
Mhm.
know someone who's named their chat, and that is their therapist.
Seriously?
Mm.
Yes, I know this person. I know him quite well, and mine has a name, but it's business.
Right.
However, this person was talking about marriage, what type of husband, when they will get married. All these things were being said and told to chat, and this person, this young lady, really believes in her chat. And when you said that, I didn't really think that was a thing. You're talking
Mhm.
to a phone and you're really living off what it's saying. I like the point that you said it could be a bridge, but you still need to find that human because I was
Mm.
asking a therapist, she said she had 30 clients and they're all remote. And I was just saying, if me, had a therapist, I would want to sit down with them, look in your eyes and kind of get
Mhm.
Mhm.
that feel. But she said that sometimes people feel more comfortable in this space.
They do.
Mhm.
They do. Yeah, it
Mhm.
can vary. It just depends. And some folks want to text, whatever is comfortable
Hmm.
for the
Mm,
Mhm.
person is what we kind of do to make them comfortable. Some folks get more anxiety whenever they're in person. And so, like I said, whatever makes you feel comfortable. And also, I wanted to add that even if you are in person with someone, that person may not be the best fit for you.
Mm.
So if the person is not the best fit for you, then find a new one. You can do whatever you want. I tell folks so you won't have to repeat everything. It might be helpful to kind of write down what's going on so that if you want to send it to them, you don't have to kind of share everything or do a voice recording so they can kind of hear your history if you have to go from therapist to therapist. But make sure you find the right fit because everybody is not the right fit, and folks have some not so good experiences with therapists even before they get to their new one. So
Mm.
that's important to note.
That's a great point. Um, you were talking about, I think, Petway, you were talking about somebody who sees their AI as their therapist.
yes.
I just remembered I saw a article or story or news report where somebody actually married their AI.
What?
Yeah, I saw that.
Yeah, yeah.
Dr. Parsons, I just had another thought too, as far as because we talked about AI being therapy, but even just tying back into social media, because after the pandemic, we had this rise in people showing up online as, you know, experts, as
Yes,
Mhm.
sir.
relationship therapists and stuff like that.
Yes, sir.
How important is it for engagement? Because I mean, you can pretty much, I feel like a lot of times our phones are listening to us. I think we all can probably attest to us having a conversation. All of a sudden we see something on our phone. But I think a lot of times people go to social media, not for guidance, but for confirmation. But can you just kind of talk about how important it is to, really be on guard when you are listening
Hmm.
to certain experts, influencers online?
That is so important. That's where your discernment comes in.
Yeah. Yeah.
You have to use your discernment on what you consume. I am on this empowerment kick where I am empowering even youth, empowering our
Mm.
adults to use your discernment on what you need to consume because someone could go on a social media campaign and go viral and be the next big thing. And then they be in a headline or a tabloid about
Mm.
whatever is going on behind closed doors that you don't see. So you kind of know what's going to work and what doesn't work for you. So be careful
Mhm.
because then you may be wrestling with something spiritually because you've consumed too much and it's kind of playing in the background of your mind and kind of triggering some other mental health and emotional things. And so you have to really tap in with God and say, is this what I need to be doing? Or, you know, unfollow those folks because your body will respond whenever it's off balance. So,
But that's
Yeah.
really good. Since we're talking about some of these coaches who are self-proclaimed and really not real, if you will, are there any mental health myths or trends, especially online, that concern you other than that?
the mental health trend really is what we've been speaking about. Is just the AI.
Mhm.
Just really relying on it, especially our babies, especially our youth, because their brains are not developed enough to really compute what is really happening. So they need someone with wisdom and experience and training to kind of help guide them through. So it's just our babies, our next generation, and kind of what's going on with them that is concerning. And that we are so, like I mentioned, just used to or numb to what's going on in our society, in our world, that we overlook a lot of things that our youth are really saying, "Hey, I need your support." Like I'm acting out in school or I'm, you know, doing all these things at home, but it's like, are we pausing to really stop and have those conversations with them so that they can have an alternative to AI? What if you are
Yeah.
the alternative to AI, but you're too busy?
Wow.
Or you're too godly
Wow.
that you can't really come
Yeah.
down to that level, and they say,
Wow.
"Oh, well, I was saying this and I was doing this, but you're just too busy." So it's really something to consider. Like, how are we creating those alternatives to give to our youth? So whatever the vision that folks have, I want to start that business. I want to write that book. I want to do that organization, but you're sitting on it and you're not doing it. Those could be the alternatives for our
Wow.
youth.
Uh,
That's heavy. Simple but
So
heavy.
it's time to do it.
mhm.
Yeah.
Since we're talking about the youth, talk to us a little bit about and to the listeners about the danger of technology and dopamine and what it does to the brain
Mm.
when you're immature.
Wow. So you can go up, you go down, up and down, up and down. Too much of that with anything, it's going to wear out. So what happens whenever you crash? I know the trend word is like crash out, right? And so because we have issues with access to care, not all populations have access to all the high dollar therapy mental health services, especially our Black and Brown communities where access to services are a barrier. Once they go through a cycle of up and down, high and low, and then they're stuck here, then how do we get them into the services that they need? So it's important to understand that at some point, if you're going up and down too much, that the crash out is going to happen. And then what? Right. And so then we have to be careful that we are not just pushing them off to the side like there's nothing that I can do, instead of identifying solutions in advance to be able to connect them to those resources. Because without the resources, they're just stuck in the same place. And we want to be able to move them forward out of that space.
So you were talking about pushing them aside, but I'm thinking on a different level. I think sometimes adults, parents, caregivers use or allow those devices, social media, the iPad, your cell phones, we allow them to babysit our children rather than spending time with them. And so then we actually give them over to, or we make them more susceptible to the dopamine ups and downs, which can lead to the crash out you're talking about.
Yes, yes. And so when they're on that sideline because of whatever, now mind you, I'm not a parent, but I know that there's a lot going on. So I want to say, acknowledge that it's just a lot going on, especially in this economy, trying to keep up with this. And don't be a single parent because that adds another layer of like support. And sometimes the iPad is what's needed to keep the parent from like crashing out. So it's like sitting down and finding that balance. And even if they don't want to go to a therapist right now, maybe there's a spiritual advisor or a mentor or someone to kind of help think through some alternatives other than the iPad or the video games. I know there's some things going on with the video games, Roblox or something that's going on with those
Mhm.
programmers. And so just sitting down and identifying those alternatives. I keep saying alternatives because without alternatives, all you have is what you have. And so that can
Right.
kind of help with that dopamine kick.
So what should people look for in a mental health professional? And if they can't find or afford a mental health professional, what should those other alternatives look like? So a two-part question. What should they look for in a therapist? And then what should they look for? Who should they look for as an alternative?
Yeah, so you want to look for someone whose values are, first of all, associated with yours. If
Hmm.
y'all are misaligned, then it's not going to work. It's okay to have differences, but you want to have somebody that you can relate to. You want to have someone even whose space is clean and orderly. I know that may sound simple, but someone who takes care of their space, who is aware of the vibe and the ambiance, and if you have what you need in the space, someone who's accessible, who calls you back, who responds. So if you make that referral and it takes them 3 or 4 days to get back to you, then that may be a forecast to kind of what the communication may be. Someone who is a co-laborer in the process with you. I use that word a lot here at the counseling center. I am a co-laborer. I am not here to tell you what to do outside of making sure that you're safe, and things of that nature. But you want to have a person that invites you into the process because you are the expert of your life. I am just here to kind of help you navigate through it. So those are
That's
some
good.
initial things that come to mind.
That's
Um,
good.
yes. And what was the second part of that?
So you helped us to kind of identify what are some qualities we should look in a therapist, but for those that can't afford a therapist, but there is an alternative. So what are some qualities or qualifications we can look for in alternatives?
Okay, alternatives. Wow. So a lot of folks do start with the church, and so they have whatever services that the church provides, which is great. I know that they're actually licensed organizations or facilities in the church that can provide those services, which is wonderful. I know a lot of times folks get involved in like service organizations or even like fitness organizations, like a little run club, because fitness does a wonder for your mental health. Getting out there and walking and taking care of your body could kind of help you in the meantime until you can navigate those spaces. If you're in college, I know that those services are likely free for that population. Of course, guidance counselors or school counselors within the school could be important. And so those are some things that come to mind. And also, if you go to the library, there may be some books that you can read to kind of get you going, or at least educate yourself and be aware of what's going on in your body as you navigate the space to identify a therapist. So, and then I keep saying and then, but there are
Wait,
some
there's more.
for bono providers that offer services for free. If you reach out to a friend, you never know who knows what. And so the services there, and then some national numbers like national hotline numbers and text line numbers that are also free that can offer support.
Before Bo comes on, there's also a service that a lot of people their job off provides. They don't
EAP.
recognize. I
Yes.
forgot what it's called. What is it?
Yeah.
EAP? EAP?
EAP.
Yes.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. And for those who don't know what EAP is, can you kind of explain that for them, Dr. Parsons?
Yeah, so it's an employee assistance program, and typically your provider will fund up to about maybe 6 or so free sessions. It just kind of depends on the provider, the organization. And so you'd go for free and talk to a provider in that network. And then from there, you would discuss what happens after those free sessions. So definitely a great resource for sure.
Absolutely. So, Dr. Parsons, we've certainly enjoyed having you on this morning and this conversation. What's one message you want listeners to carry with them beyond Mental Health Awareness Month?
The one message, I would say that I may have more than one message, but therapy is more than a trend.
Mm.
It's about doing what is necessary for your life. I am empowering and encouraging everyone to take back that control, to lean into God to guide you with that wisdom, to seek the support that you need. It is not all lost. You absolutely can make it through whatever it is that you're going through, and the time is now. It's
Mhm.
not time. We don't have any more time to wait. Do it today. Take the step today. Get out and walk today. Make the hard phone call today. clean up your house, organize something. It's now. And it's not about fixing what's broken. I don't want you to think it's about fixing what's broken. It's about taking the steps forward so that you can live your life with the abundance and joy that you deserve. So, yeah, it's time to take back our power, y'all. It's 2026 and it's no time to wait. So, allow your journey to unfold beautifully in your becoming. It's okay to have ups and downs and peaks and valleys, but it's not impossible for you to move forward. It is absolutely possible. And with God, you can do anything. So take your power back, y'all.
Right. And so before we close out, Dr. Parsons, if people wanted to connect with you, via social media, tell our listeners how they can connect with you. If you have any websites or, any work that you're working on, how they can take advantage of that.
Yes. So on Instagram, I said Instagram, y'all. Instagram, Tumming _ Dr. Parsons. And if you just put my name in LinkedIn, Tierra Parsons, I will come up. I think I have two, but the one that says I am enough, because I love affirmations. Affirmations are very key to making sure that you are redirected back to your worth. But that's another podcast for another day. But just put my name in LinkedIn and yeah, I will accept your request.
All right. Well, again, we appreciate you for coming on this morning and just having a very important conversation about Mental Health Awareness Month. And just want to thank you for sharing your insight and expertise. It's a great conversation. I feel like we could have kept going on,
Yeah,
and then
we've been
there's more. So,
over.
right. But just to our listeners, just remember taking care of your mental health is an ongoing journey. It's not just something to focus on for 1 month. So check in with yourself, support those around you, and don't hesitate to reach out if you need help. This concludes another episode of The Lifeline with your host, Barry J. Elliott, Lindsberg Petway II, and yours truly, Bo Powell, and our special guest, Dr. Tierra Parsons, right? She's working on her
Yes.
doctorate. I just want to be clear on that.
Yes.
I know there's some controversy online, so we're
Thank
speaking life in
you.
there, right? Let me get that clear, right?
Exactly.
She's becoming a doctor. So we're just
Yes.
speaking that in future tense.
Yes.
But we're on a mission to bring light and life into the places people don't always talk about. So stay with us. Join the conversation. We want to hear from you because the Lifeline exists to speak life into your life. Y'all take care.
Thank you for listening to today's episode with host, business expert, and life coach Bo Powell, social media influencer and entrepreneur Lindsberg Petway, and leadership coach and mental health advocate Barry J. Elliott. Join us next week for another impactful conversation on The Lifeline. God bless.